Good morning, class 12s. So, I hope you all have enjoyed your puja holidays and I have checked your papers. I think you all have done extremely well because you all had to stay home and do so. Obviously, no doubt everybody's gonna has done good, obviously. So, with this video, we will be ending the chapter. Okay, so let's begin without wasting any more time. So this is transformation in rural society and after independence. Okay, what transformations came in the rural society, in the village society after independence? So with the onset, like we studied green revolution, right? So in green revolution, a lot of new technologies were used. So what happened was an increase in the use of agricultural labor. So as like new technologies were used, okay, we required more laborers to work in the fields, and even more fields were being like used, okay, in order to produce goods. As a result, and like produce all these agricultural goods, as a result more laborers were used. Payment in kind to payment in cash. So earlier payment was done in kind, okay, like there was barter system, and if I give you a kilo of sugar, you give me a kilo of something. That sort of things happened. But now, with the coming of green revolution, there was payment in cash. Loosening of bond between the farmers or landowners and agricultural laborers. Like earlier, how there was a very dominant relationship between the farmers and the landowners and the tenants, the peasants, but that began to loosen. And the rise of class of free wage laborers. Like I had told you earlier, how like the workers, the laborers were kept without being paid any money, and they were kept as slaves and bonded laborers. So such instances or such things, like it began to become abolished. Okay, so agriculture was being commercialized, and crops were being grown for the purpose of selling. So earlier, how crops were grown only for, like, you know it was for their own sustenance, okay, self sufficiency. But now it was being produced in order to go to be in order to be sold in the market. Scholars regarded it as capitalist agriculture. Like you've studied Karl Marx in your class 11. Okay, so there you know what capitalist agriculture is, where all the means of production are in the hands of the owning class, and it is the laborers who work. And later, the laborers, they work all day, like they work and they give so much time to those products. And after those products like are it gets ready, it does not come in their hand. Instead, it goes out in the market. Okay, so that's why the scholars are considering this modern form of agriculture as capitalist agriculture, as there was a separation of the workers from the means of production and the products. So like what Karl Marx said, capitalism, that was what is happening in the agriculture as well. There was a separation of the workers from the means of production. And if you do not understand what capitalism is, please go to your class 11 textbook, understanding what was that book, society, and please read the text where, I mean, like the chapter, Western sociologist, I think, for clear understanding of the concept of capitalism. Okay, so the rural areas where green revolution took place became more integrated with the wider society and resulted in transformation and flow of more money, resources, and business opportunities in the rural economy. So like we said that like we studied earlier in the earlier video, that green revolution did not take place in each and every rural area, but there were certain areas, certain conditions that certain areas fulfilled. As a result, in those areas green revolution took place. So these areas became more in touch with the wider society, and they had more opportunities and more resources coming in. The government also promoted use of new technology, machinery, credit through banks, which resulted in transformation. So government also played an important role. They brought about technologies, gave loans to the farmers, brought about machineries, which brought about a lot of changes in the rural society. The rich farmers invested their profit from agriculture into other business, which led to the rise of a new class which moved to urban towns and were economically and politically dominant. So the rich farmers, who belonged to the dominant caste in the villages, uh, the profit that they made from agriculture, from selling their products, they invested in other business, and as a result they moved to live in towns. Okay, and then they also became economically and politically dominant. So there also has been a growth of educational institutions in the rural and semi-rural areas. So with the onset of with the coming of green revolution, there has been a lot of changes in the social educational aspects of the rural areas. And then the other topic is circulation of labor. So it has also led to the circulation of labor. So what it is, there has been a growth of migrant agricultural laborers. So that means like you know what migrant laborers are, and you see it uh, in in Siliguri as well. Okay, people from different villages, they come to this urban areas and they look for jobs. So that happens in agriculture as well. So people from rural areas go to such areas where there is more demand for agricultural laborers, leaving their family back home. So such, and they are like seasonal workers. You know, when certain product needs to be harvested, these people, these migrant laborers, they go, they live there, they work. Okay, and then later when that work is not there, they do some other work, or they go back home and do their own farming. Such things happen. So these laborers are termed as footloose laborers by Bremen. This Bremen, he's a sociologist. So he called such laborers footloose laborers. These migrants are easy to exploit and are paid low wages. As a result, the wealthy farmer employ the migrant laborers than the local ones. So the laborers who come from distant areas to work in such areas where there is a demand for agricultural laborers, the rich farmers, they prefer to employ the migrants more than the local rulers, because local farmers, because these migrants can be paid less and they can be exploited. So obviously these farmers will choose the migrants to be employed in their fields, because the local farmers, they charge like high amount and cannot be exploited very much easily. So in the areas supplying such migrant laborers, it is the women who work in the fields in those areas, thus leading to feminization of agricultural labor force. So in areas from where these migrant laborers come to work in other areas, the agriculture in those areas from where they come, okay, so since all the men, they go and they work in other areas in order to earn more money, so there is no one like there are no men to work in the fields in those areas from where they come. So as a result, the women, they began, like, they take part in the agricultural process in those areas. As a result, it leads to feminization of agricultural labor. So here, more of the women are engaged in agriculture. So the last is globalization, liberalization, and rural society. You know how the policy of globalization, liberalization has opened up the Indian markets to the global and the international world. So as a result, the competition has also increased, as well as it has been both beneficial, and there are pros and cons. So the policy of liberalization opens the Indian market to the international market. Okay, so there is free trade, import and export becomes easier, people can move from one country to another in search of jobs. Okay, there's free flow of capital, machinery due to globalization and liberalization. So after many years of trade within the nation, so before globalization, before these policies came about, um, like, India was more of a closed economy and everything happened within one's own state and within one's own nation. But then, with the coming up of globalization, liberalization, and opening up of the market in India, and the introduction of all these foreign and yeah, all introduction of the foreign goods led to a lot of changes. Okay, after many years of trade within the nation, liberalization has promoted import and export of goods and services with less restrictions. So a lot of goods began to be imported from other countries to India, and then began to be exported from India to other countries. This led to the growth of competition. Contract farming systems have come up where the farmers enter into contract with the multinational companies to grow crops, which is then brought by the company for export. So such things happen, contract farming, where multinational companies, okay, they pay the farmers to, like, produce certain crops, and then these companies, they sell these crops to the, like, other companies or other countries, or they use it for or they export it. Okay, so corporate farming, sorry, this is not corporate, this is contract farming, brings security to the farmers. Also although they will have jobs, okay, but then it will bring a sense of insecurity as well, because they will not be doing everything independently, they will be working for somebody else. So then the issue of farmers suicide has been taking place since few not few decades back in our country, and this is basically because the farmers, they try to adopt the practices of green revolution in order to increase their productivity. And then when they do that, it is very it is very costly, okay. And then when there is crop failure or certain things that happens, and their crops fail, these people, due to excess above due to all of these excess problems, and due to crop failure, and then all these debt that they are in, because they try to take up green revolution in order to increase their productivity, they tend to commit suicide. Okay, so this is farmers suicide. I have taken only important points from your text, and there are a few examples of some states that you can go through, and then you can relate what I have taught. Okay, thank you.